I think
Actually, I don't hear you, Kyle.
Yeah, it's on Kyle's end.
Whoa, what was that?
Is it gone?
It's gone now.
It's gone.
Oh, this new
But now you're really quiet.
Alrighty. Yay for the part that we'll edit out. Hey, everybody.
La 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 la.
So I'm going to upgrade the Cam Twist software to the beta version because even the beta is working better than the regular one, I think.
Oh, man.
So, but hey, we're live.
Wow, huge noise. It's your air conditioner again.
Oh, sorry. I'm so hot.
We know.
HAWT, that I have to have an HAWT.
Yes. Yes, you are.
That's just frightening.
Is it really frightening?
That's frightening.
You gotta give me some Batman lines if you're gonna do that.
Say my name. I don't know.
I don't know any Batman lines.
The only Batman lines I remember are good old Val Kilmer on SNL.
Oh no, what did he say?
No. Wait a minute. Never mind, I messed that up. Forget the last 15 seconds.
It's alright, we couldn't understand it anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. That's one heck of a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that crackle again.
Oh, there's that crackle again. I think it might be on your end, Vince.
Is it because of me?
I didn't.
Huh.
It's gone.
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not doing anything over here except moving the window on my desktop.
Yeah, it's you.
There, now it's gone.
Now it's gone.
Yay!
So I'm hearing crackle, but I'm gonna mute my microphone right now. And I'm still hearing crackle actually during the muting.
Yeah, when you mute your mic, the crackle goes away for us.
Oh, what the heck? That's weird.
Is that part of
Okay.
this,
Well, what about now? I hear absolutely no crackle.
No, it's perfect right now.
I'm gonna turn off my other mic and
Must be
stop
your
with that
mic.
effect.
Yeah. Well, let's just get the show going. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's move.
All right. Need a clapper. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Game Audio Hour number... Is this 37? Or
So it
What?
is-
73, I mean?
73, yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm slick-dexic. This is our weekly podcast where we discover all things game audio, from creative ideas to latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets. Here's where you'll find your in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. Vince, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Just doing the usual work. Been writing a whole bunch of music lately, and also having some fun inspiration because here in Hollywood, there's a big old Ghibli thing going on at the Egyptian and Aero theaters. We're in the middle of this big 2-week-long festival of Ghibli double features. So if you're in the LA area and you don't know about it, well, now you know. Check out all these Ghibli movies. Of course, all those Ghibli movies have some fantastic soundtracks. And I was reminded of some fun stuff, getting some inspiration from things like Lapta and Nausicaa and all those other 80s Ghibli films.
Well,
Pretty cool.
You gotta tell me what a Ghibli movie is. I'm completely unfamiliar.
Oh, okay. So Ghibli Films refers to Studio Ghibli, which is a famed animation studio in Japan known for making things like Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away. And actually, they just recently announced that they are no longer the independent production house that they once were, making all those films. So now they're just going to be another for-hire, if rather prestigious, animation studio in Japan, much like all the other animation studios out there. But, you know, in the previous 30 years, they were known for making a bunch of, you know, really wonderful films, you know, running the gamut from children's films like My Neighbor Totoro to very serious films like
wow.
Grave of the Fireflies, which is a World War II animated feature.
Is it spelled Gibly?
That's Ghibli.
Oh,
It's
Ghibli.
they like their Italian over there. It's an Italian word.
That's
Ghibli.
cool. Hey, Alex. I'm sure you're familiar with these Ghibli films.
Hello. Yeah, you might actually, maybe you may not know them by the name of Ghibli. You may have heard of the name of an animation director called Miyazaki.
Yeah.
Miyazaki is the top head of Studio Ghibli.
God.
And it's probably would you agree, Vince, probably the most widely known sort of, I guess, mainstream of the kind of high Japanese anime coming out of this country, I guess.
Yeah, certainly. They're kind of the Disney of Japan there, and
Nice.
Certainly on that same level in terms of the quality of work that they do.
Yeah, I can't really think of anybody more well known outside of Japan in the animation realm. So I am well. It's we're at the end of summer, sort of, and I think there's a typhoon somewhere around, so it's a bit cooler today. So less moss, slightly less sweat, but not that much. I think the camera's actually on Vince at the moment, so you don't have to see me in my sweat.
Who
So
knew
that's
that?
good.
I'm good at that. Let's try this again. Hey, Alex, how you doing?
Hello.
Now the camera's on you.
I'm all right.
Oh,
So
who's in charge of these shots?
yeah, Carl's. For everybody who's wondering, Carl is actually sitting at probably sort of like the equivalent of a 4-manual cathedral organ, where every key is like a different shot or a different button. This one shuts down the broadcasting software, and that one, reboots his computer, and this one.
Hey, my level's better. People in the chat room were saying I'm quiet, and Alex did as well. But I upped my
You're just fine.
my gain. Okay, good. I'm gained up. Don't gain up on me. Get it? See what I did with gain?
Shh. Wow.
Very good, Carl.
All right, so I wanted to talk about a couple things. Before I get to the cool thing that Vince had set up, are you guys? Does anybody have that pipe organ library Toccata by Sonokinetic?
I do not.
I think it's been around a while, but it just got on my radar, and man, is it epic! I went through for a project. Oops, plosives. All of these pipe organ libraries that I had that came with Ableton or came with some sort of bundle I have. I don't have anything that's like an individual purchased pipe organ. It's always like included with something. And they were all pretty lacking. And then suddenly good point. Suddenly I had to find a pipe organ, and I found, just through a very easy search, Toccata, and it's awesome. I mean, what I'm hearing from their library is awesome. The movie's kind of lacking because they didn't do a great job performing a very popular piece of classical music, but don't let that distract you from some fantastic samples. I was just curious if you guys had it.
Yeah, I don't. I've actually been working mostly with. I've never had to pay separately for an organ library. I always usually build my own out of the freebies that things come with. And the way organs work, you just have these types of pipes and these types of pipes and these types of pipes. So as an instrument, it actually works pretty well with this idea of mixing and mashing from different organ patches that you might have. A contact library here, a dimension library over here, an old Akai library there. Hey, let me just throw in some trumpet, because a lot of those pipes, they're not that dissimilar from horns, right?
Yeah.
So I've usually been okay with just that. I've never had to do anything where I needed a good quality solo church organ, though. Maybe if I need to do that sometime in the future, I'll probably go ahead and look for a really solid library then.
The reason I found it is because I was writing a battle piece, and I wanted it to be different. And I thought, what's needed in a battle piece is a harpsichord. And then the minute you put a harpsichord in something, you have to have a church organ, right? And then I realized it's starting to kind of go in the Castlevania kind of direction, but I tried to stay out of that territory, and I just embarrassed myself there. But a couple things happened. Is that the harpsichord sent me looking for a pipe organ. The pipe organ search led me to Toccata, which sounds fantastic. And then the battle music itself, the client said, I want battle music. Harpsichord's an interesting choice, but I think I like it. And I thought, man, isn't that great that in the end the client was like willing to think outside of the typical box. Everything else was that giant weaponry, blood splatter kind of battle music. And this is more like, like somebody with a foil, like a rapier kind of battle. And it got me thinking, what do you guys do if you have to write battle music? Because it can become so kind of monotonous and boring, and sound the same across all the different projects and movies. What do you guys do to spice up your battle music?
Well, I think that's really cool, the choice of the harpsichord there. It's not a particularly loud and big instrument, but there's a really nice quality to the tone of the harpsichord. It has a really nice attack. It's harpsichord is is really plucked strings, not hammers that you get in a piano, and that creates this interesting activity. Your ears are really very involved with the attacks of those tones compared to a lot of other instruments. So that I can see that working really well. I know often when I'm doing battle stuff, I'm going to look at different ways of using guitars, probably in a similar fashion to what you were thinking with the harpsichord, creating all sorts of different types of rhythms and sequences. And let me get some really incessant strumming over there. What if I go with a 12 string? What if I, what if I double that up? And that can create some really interesting tones, like making the sound more involved and not just more loud and big.
Yeah. Plus the harpsichord let me get rid of there's rhythm behind the battle scene, and the harpsichord let me get rid of all those 32nd and 16th notes that I was filling in with some sort of drum. I was able to kind of concentrate on quarter notes and big hits because the harpsichord's going and I thought, man, this is really fun. Not to pat myself on the back, but I'm glad I thought out of the box because it really solved a lot of problems. And plus, it was a really high pressure cue that had to be written in practically less than a day, because then it had to be orchestrated and mixed. And it let me answer a lot of questions that the template I kind of lean on my template too much. So I've decided that harpsichord is now a permanent part of my template for battle music. And what was the other thing I got to add? Oh, I got to add guitar, because then I metaled it up. Of course, you got I added this metal guitar riff in there as well. And another one that I used was Crowd Choir by, that was kind of the signature for these four pieces, is they consistently have this choir that I've taken from Sonic Couture, Crowd Choir, and then I distorted it through some guitar pedals. And it sounds like Hell's Gates are opening. I think it sounds really awesome. And that's consistent through the whole thing. So yeah, little harpsichord, anyway, I'm celebrating probably more than I should, but I'm happy that I have reached the end of the list of cues that had to be done in such a quick order. And it was super fun to actually have that, to say, I can't spend a week on this cue. I've got 4 hours. Alex, how about you?
I'm actually, I've never had the privilege of writing battle music of that sort. I guess because I specialize mostly in synth stuff. People don't tend to come to me asking for that kind of stuff, so I've never really had the opportunity.
But the same rules apply, right? I mean, you still have to cover all of these rhythms, split among the different the different tempos that you can.
Right. I guess the main thing is just to look for a different kind of direction, because you have your emotions are feeling this way when you're in a battle scene. Yeah. So having the music pull you in a different way, like you said, with a very articulate, sophisticated sound like a harpsichord, it seems like a really great solution. Right. I mean, going sort of full metal or full ridiculous, whatever the synth equivalent of full metal would be, which would be sort of dumb bro step. Then yes, bro step is actually a genre, people.
Oh no, I was laughing. I'm gonna act like I knew it was.
Anyway,
well, I got lucky. To tell you the truth, the reason it led into that is because this is going to sound kind of crazy, but maybe it's something funny we can talk about. So I was lucky enough to get this gig, and I'm very happy for it. But in our conversations, the word battle music actually never happened. So I was writing pieces. I didn't have any visuals, and so I'm writing pieces for this idea of what this thing is about. And then as I started turning them in, the client was like, "Well, this isn't very battle-ish." And I was like, "Battle music? I didn't know." So ask your questions, people. I got so excited, I just kind of marched forward without full information. But it's because I didn't consider that I was writing battle music that the harpsichord came out. So it ended up being a really good thing, right? Got very lucky there. Just wanted to share that. Anyway, so check out Toccata. And, Alex, I was going to ask you. Oh, yeah, I'm still on you, aren't I? I do that. I just stay on you. I just stare at Alex the whole time. Everybody just watch Alex while...
You're looking at the beads of sweat dripping down from the moss on my head.
That's why you remind me I'm missing shots, because you're like, oh my God, he's still looking at me.
He's still looking at me, and I can see the blue cheese growing on the back of my neck.
Okay, well, this question is for you, so I'm going to keep the shot the same. Well, you've gotten RPG games to write for, right? How do you do that with a synth then, since they're so commonly backed from some sort of orchestral soundtrack?
No, I've never had RPG games either. It's funny. The main things that I get doing synth stuff are things like futuristic games, shooters, games that have that obviously sort of retro feel, and people want that kind of retro sound.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a. There was one thing I did for Vitae, which was for a prototype that they did, which was more sort of fantasy. Mm-hmm. And in that case, it was really fun. I used Yuhi Badzila, which is my favorite synth at the moment, to patch up an FM stringed instrument. So it was a very articulate stringed instrument, and used that as a melody for the footsteps for the character as they're walking around. And then basically layering in sort of pseudo-realistic sounding kind of physical model sort of sound, but not quite stuff in the background. But it is it's interesting that, when people think synthetic music or synthetic sound, mostly in the game industry, people will think of, the retro sound, like your square waves and stuff like that, sort of the Mario 8-bit kind of sound.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a little shame that at least there doesn't seem to be much exploration in the middle area where synthesizers are, we're making sounds to sound sort of like they're real, but not like anything that you've really heard before. Which, in many cases, when you look at the visual aesthetic of games, that's the sort of direction that they often take. It's sort of, you think of Journey. Yeah, there's two legs and a head, so it's like kind of sort of a humanoid kind of shape, but it's nothing you've ever seen before. Mm-hmm. There's no arms. And so the same thing, I'm a little not disappointed, but I hope that in future people will be willing to explore more of what we can do when we're creating unique instruments that don't exist, things that you can actually play on a keyboard. Because that's, of course, where, doing it synthetically or using physical modeling stuff is really, that's its strong point. Yeah. Speaking of physical modeling, last week we talked about chromophone from Applied Acoustic Systems, AAS, I think is that the abbreviation. Yeah. And it was on sale. I'm not sure if it's on sale anymore. It might actually be for another 5 days. I think it's the end of this month. And I've been really, really thoroughly testing to see if it's for me. You know what? I've come to the conclusion that things that come out of chromophone, to me, sort of begin to sound a little bit the same. Throw the mic down.
Those are fighting words.
Interesting.
Throw the mic down. It's sort of, like a lot of the drum and percussion things that you can make with it.
Yeah.
Number one, just to put in some positive comments about chromophone, I love how simple it is to use.
Yeah.
Everything's there. It's really, the interface is lovely. It's really clear and it's very easy, and you can easily see, the modulation amount that you're adding or what's patched to what. That's excellent. You get fantastic value for your money with all the effects that it comes with. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh yeah, here we go. Then you have a look at the effect session. Wow, there's a lot here, and it all sounds very good. And of course, effects in the synth are great for workflow because you can just sort of experiment with things much more faster than adding your favorite flanger or your favorite delay and then tweaking that. However, like in making a whole series of different kinds of percussion sounds, they sort of, to me, started to sound a bit similar. So I'm comparing to the alternative that I have for doing that kind of thing. Yeah. I think Vince is frozen.
Is he? Oh, he's shocked him into submission. He's not even moving.
That's right. He's just like, if you're gonna talk bad about the chromophone, I'm out of here.
Well, let me switch to. Are we on? Yeah, we're on a full shot. Because when Vince finally gets dropped and comes back in, our screens are gonna shake and resize. Well, anyway, I'm kind of with you now that Vince isn't here, so don't tell him I said this. There is a limit to chromophone for me. There is a limit to it. I think the sound is interesting, but you definitely need to beef it up with some insert effects and get it really kind of going, because and it's not AAS. It's the same thing about modeled instruments, even like piano tech for me. There's something about the sound of it that it's kind of like I'm having a sugar substitute rather than sugar. And it just tastes and sounds like it's not the real thing, no matter how close they get, because piano tech gets really close. But there's just something about that your ear can recognize that's left over. You go, well, there's something missing. I can't really put my finger on it. And and chromophone does that for me after a while. I kind of like, I depend upon the presets in chromophone. I go in there and see what they've done. And if I go, well, it's not quite right, then I just leave. I don't actually start messing with it and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think the alternative that I use for that kind of thing is
hold on, let me
funny.
explain this to people who aren't watching the show. That wah wah is Vince trying to get in the show via Skype. Wah, wah. Poor Vince, he got dropped.
It's saying that it's not letting him in, is what Vince is saying.
Anyway, well, we'll have to continue, and he'll have to keep trying. Or wait, I could send it. Let me send him an invitation one more time.
I just did, but
thank you. Let's see how that works. He'll get multiple ones if he clicks on it.
Anyway,
he might come in with more than one screen, huh? All right, go ahead. So yeah, after the show, we'll talk about the new setup and see if it's worth it. All the trouble. It's kind of got its own problems, right? We get away from Hangouts because of its quality issue and weird dropping of resolutions. And we come over here to this massive setup, and in the end, it's still got its own issues. Nothing is a perfect solution when it comes to video podcasts, I guess.
Yeah. I think what I was going to say was the solution that I use for that kind of thing is actually Native Instruments Reactor Prism.
Yeah, that's a great
now that is an example. It's incredibly complicated to use. It's a disgusting interface. I mean, it looks nice, but it's just so confusing. Here he is. He's coming.
Well, I just added him. That's more of Skype putting a placeholder up for him to hopefully link into.
Yeah, it's but Reactor Prism is that's one that I haven't. Whenever I create different things in that, which I often do for sound effects when we need to do dings or bells or stuff like that, or metallic sounds. Every time it'll sound unique, interesting, and fairly lush. Which is sort of at least with chromophone, when I was experimenting to seeing if I should buy it, I wasn't really I think a lot of the membranes, maybe they use the same overtones for them or something, because they tend to sort of after a while sound quite similar, whereas with Prism you have complete control over the different overtones and the way that they're comb filtered and all that kind of cool stuff, and it's
and that appeals to you as a scientist of sound, really, doesn't it? For me, I get to I enjoy the idea of that at the beginning, and then the more I start to dig into the parameters, I start to shut down and just go find something acoustic,
Yeah, that's the one thing about Prism, is it is very complicated, and I think I've developed a sort of a what's the word, like a hack and slash kind of approach. Like I sort of know what the knobs do, but I don't really understand. So I know that if I want that kind of sound, I can just turn that here and turn that there, and it sounds like this, but I don't really understand what's going on.
I thought you were going to say Stockholm Syndrome. Like, I've been beat up by this so much, I think it's my dad. That's a bad joke. Anyway, and I had a fantastic dad. Don't take that the wrong way.
Actually, while we're on the topic of Native Instruments,
Yeah.
Native Instruments dropped the bomb a few weeks ago with, well, I don't know if it's a bomb so much as a
You can't say drop the bomb and then back out of that. Just go.
yeah, I don't know.
Just go. It's a bomb.
Anyway, they dropped a veritable bomb with their stems format. Stems format. So for those people who don't know, it's Native Instruments' answer to DJs wanting more control over the different parts of their tracks when they're playing live.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. I haven't figured out how useful it is.
Yeah, I don't know that really. I mean, obviously, the first thing you think is there any way that we can use it for game audio?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, wait.
He's here.
There he is. Awesome. I'm going to send this text to him anyway, Vince. Just ignore it.
Hold on.
What
You're gonna
happened?
need to.
I want to know.
You're going to need to close down your chat window there, Kyle.
Yeah. Is it
That's
open?
going out in the broadcast.
Oh, check it out. That's so cool. Welcome. Alrighty. Jeez. Hey, Vince, how you doing? Should we start over? What happened?
I don't know. Alex was just about to dig into why he doesn't like Chromophone.
Yeah.
And then it just stopped.
Yeah, well, we've covered that now. You're too late.
I'm too late.
No.
That's all right.
No, go with
Well,
it. God damn
The end shot of it was, Vince, that Reactor Prism, I think, is slightly on top of Chromophone in terms of sort of versatility and the different things. I just sort of found after a while with Chromophone it was sort of sounding a bit similar.
Yeah. And I kind
whereas
of agree.
Reactor Prism, every single time, even though it's a horrid interface and it's really hard to understand, every single time it's lush and unique and interesting and different somehow.
Yeah, but the learning curve on that is enormous.
It's huge. Yeah,
Well,
it's
the
a
learning
cliff
curve
face.
on Chromophone is straight out of the box.
I get you on that. I think for me, Chromophone is it's totally possible to get really nice, unique sounds out of it, but you have to go beyond the interface. And I have some pretty serious issues with Chromophone, honestly, and I've been able to get by them just by ending up drawing a lot of envelopes in my MIDI tracks for Chromophone. I mean, that's what I do. When I'm using Chromophone for sound effects, I've got envelopes for everything. Envelopes for noise, envelopes for the envelopes for yeah, I mean I'm always modulating those things. And unfortunately, as pretty as the Chromophone interface is, there's a crucial thing that it doesn't allow me to do, which is real-time input MIDI knobs or faders onto any of the stuff in there. I can do it in my DAW, I can't do it on input, which is why I'm always drawing those envelopes. But once you actually get to that point, it actually sounds really good. And for that, I'm actually willing to do that. It's a good enough value there.
Do you draw the envelopes or do you record the automation?
I draw in the automation.
Oh my gosh, you're a dedicated man, sir.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, often I'm doing things in a very rough way. You know, it's more like, okay, I'm going to do this with a filter line. I'm going to do this with the resonance. That's a line. Oh, I'll tweak that up a bit. It's not really complex automation, but it's there, and that's the way to do it, and it will end up sounding pretty good in my opinion.
I think, yeah, I mean, Chromophone, it sounds great. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I guess the main thing is that after using it for a week, just sort of fiddling around trying to create sounds with, actually using it with an objective, right? I'm going to make this kind of sound. I just sort of found that it was, even though it sounds great, and it was sort of starting to sound the same. And it was like, are they, with the membrane, for example, the membrane models, are they using the same overtone series for all of them? It's like each one of them sort of the same overtone series, where, of course, the whole point of Reactor Prism is giving you control over the overtones and which ones are playing.
Were you saying that it was causing you some insane in the membrane issues?
That's right.
Just checking.
Well, you can do that. They do have the custom physics that you can do for the setting up your own overtones. Although it's a little bit limited. Yeah. It's a little bit limited there compared to Reactor Prism, but you can do it, and I use it rather often.
So speaking of, go ahead, Alex. Go ahead before I move on, please.
Just one more thing. I ended up not getting on the summer sales. I ended up not getting Chromophone. Instead, I got my first plugins from the D16 group. Have you heard of D16?
No.
D16 is a fairly sort of a mid-sized company out of Poland, and they have done some really, really excellent, accurately modeled drum machines for vintage Roland drum machines, 99, 808, and I think 505 or 606, as well as like an SH101 and a TV303 emulator.
Is that
they
what
also
we talked
have
about last week? Or a couple of shows ago? About there was somebody we talked about that.
No, not that one.
No. They also have a series of effects plugins, which they call the Silverline series. And I guess the thing that differentiates D16 is they're very, very highly polished rendered interfaces. They look really, really. If you're into sort of things that look like hardware, then it's very.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So I got Devastor, which is a diode clipper emulation.
Ooh.
So for those who are unfamiliar, it's a form of distortion, like a sort of if you think of the classic Boss distortion pedal, the orange one, which Carl has probably got 6 of.
You want me to go get it?
Yeah, everybody's got to have one of them. They're great, but it's a diode clipper, I guess, is the way that they actually were, by clipping the signal into a diode.
Okay, gotcha.
And this Devastor is that kind of distortion only, but it comes with, it's sort of a multi-band. It comes with
Gotcha.
3 filters with different types on them, as well as some interesting stuff with compression and transient shaping.
Man,
It's really good.
Don't you
And
wish
so
you could just buy the hardware for €39? You know, have a
So
box.
Yeah, so I got that, and then as part of signing up, they sent me a voucher for like €25 or something. So I'll get another one. So I got the other one, which was the Anthrasol Flanger.
Oh.
And this one is really, really pretty special. If you have a look at a screenshot of the Flanger, it's pretty special.
Special in a good way? See what I did there with the... Never mind.
Carl's going to have to probably help me out here, but it's supposed to be emulating some kind of classic flanging device called a Mistress.
Oh.
Can you tell me what that is? Because I actually don't know.
Well, hold on. I'll show you a picture, sir. Go ahead and talk while I look it up.
So anyway, this flanger plugin is excellent because I work with a lot of monophonic synth plugins like Berzilla and Diva. I'm always looking for a way to get a bit of stereo spread and different ways to do that beyond just basic chorus or delay or reverbs or stuff like that. And I've never actually owned a dedicated flanger.
Oh.
So I thought, well, let's have a look and see what we can do. And this might be the last flanger that you would ever need. There's so much control over what you can do over the signal, and it has such character. You can actually sort of use it like a sort of a bit crusher device as well. You can get sort of chorusy sounds with it as well. It's extremely versatile.
Nice.
And it's sort of like one of these fun, like the Devastor as well. It's sort of a fun thing where they give you a few basic tools designed to be a flanger, but it's very easy to abuse it to do something completely different and unusual. So yeah, this one is really something special. So I've been really happy so far. I mean, I've only had these for a few days, but I've been really happy so far with this stuff from D16. If you're interested, they're coming out with Devastor 2, which is going to be, there's a big picture of it on their website at the moment, which is going to be an upgrade to the Devastor number 1. And they did tell me in a support ticket when I was asking them about it that it's going to be out in about the next 2 or 3 months.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be an improved version of this current diode clipper with more control and more routing possibilities with the different filters. And if you buy Devastor 1 now, you will be eligible for a free upgrade to Devastor 2 when it comes out in a few months.
So what does true BBD mean on there? The flanger works similarly to an analog delay where you have these bucket brigade chips. And a bucket brigade means that, imagine you've got a line full of people with empty buckets except the first guy. And he's got that bucket full of sound, and he sends it to, he dumps his bucket into the next guy, and that guy dumps his bucket into the third guy, third into the fourth. And that's the way analog delays would send signal down the line. And I assume by true BBD, they're saying maybe true bucket brigade digital. Is that what they're referencing in this Anthrasol?
I guess that's exactly what it is.
Okay, it's a digital bucket brigade chip then. Which is cool in some ways, because basically that bucket is filled with a sample that's going to sound the same as it passes from one bucket to the next. The bad thing about that is you don't get that darkening that you get with an analog bucket brigade, because the sound actually degrades as it passes down the line, and that's what adds that character to an analog delay. But a digital chip's not going to cause that. But it's but in some
they
ways,
are emulating. It says that they are emulating that analog delay line.
Oh, so they've probably computationally added the darkening as, because you lose your high end as the sample, or as the audio moves through the chipset. It's naturally. But this is really exciting. And so what it's referencing, sorry, I just want to get this in, is the Electric Mistress from Electro-Harmonix, who is, in my opinion, maybe the greatest guitar pedal maker of all time. I certainly own more of their stuff than anybody else's. I just love what they do.
They did the big muff, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think this D16 group from Poland. It's interesting. We're seeing. I think it's really wonderful and exciting that we're seeing these sort of slightly smaller plugin makers coming up in countries that you wouldn't expect. I mean, obviously, the first place you think of is Germany. There's so many plugin makers in Berlin, and then of course you've got the UK and you've got the States. But Poland is not really a place that you would think of when you think of plugin makers, and yet we do have D16 and of course PSP Audioware, who make some fantastic solid products, including of course Vintage Warmer and Old Timer and Noble Q and all of their they've got the Lexicon emulations as well, the Lexicon delay emulations that they do. And I have to say about PSP, I've been using them ever since I pretty much started doing game audio. So like ages and ages, just the same plugins, and they've always just been, super reliable.
They had a free
DAW
plugin,
upgrades, nothing, everything's just reliable. And, I think whoever does their back-end programming must be very talented, because it's all just solid, reliable stuff. And
do they have? Do they do Piano Verb? Isn't that free?
Yeah.
Piano
Yeah,
Verb?
that's right. Yeah, that's PSP.
But isn't there a trick to that when you install it? I think it's important to bring up the show, because I have Piano Verb, but I've brought up old projects and it's lost somehow. And then I look on my machine and it's still here. So I don't know. I'm trying to comb through my brain right now for some information for the viewers to say, be careful of this situation. All I know is that I've brought up old projects and it said that it's a licensing issue. For some reason, it's free, but you still have to maintain a license with it. You can't just install it, do a license, and let it go. Over time, you have to relicense it, or maybe it's an upgrade that has to be relicensed. Something happens, but then I revisited old projects, and it's completely, even though on my machine, completely unusable in that project. So be careful for that, because it's a great reverb, but I don't like to have to touch it all the time.
Yeah, I've never had those issues. I don't. This is an interesting secondary topic, actually, is free plugins. Free plugins.
Not
I'm
again.
always a little bit. I'm very fortunate to be able to, afford some, a modest price range of different things that I get. But I'm always a little bit nervous about using free plugins. I think that I got burnt one time with Tal Noisemaker. So you may know it's a German plugin guy, Tal, Tal.
Yeah.
He does a bunch of very, very generous, excellent quality free effect plugins and synth plugins. And one of them was called the Noisemaker. I'd written this whole song with his Noisemaker synth plugin, and then he upgraded the version, and the previous version didn't work anymore. And it's like it was all broken, and there goes my song. And I didn't sort of take the precaution of rendering anything. So it's sort of after that experience, whenever I think free, I think, if it's free, that's sort of like there's no obligation for the developer to keep this maintained for you.
Yeah, that's true.
And if they don't, it's like, that's fair enough. We would understand as basically the kind of software developers that we are, that, if you're offering it for free and people are complaining about you not maintaining it, then, what can you do? So these days I'm sort of always a bit nervous about free plugins. Do you guys rely, or another example, of course, is Camel Audio's Camel Crusher, although that's a bit different because Camel Audio, of course, got bought out by Apple. So it's not really a case of them not maintaining Camel Crusher. But do you guys commonly use or rely on any free plugins?
Commonly?
Wow.
No.
Is
I
there a
have
reason
some
for that?
go-tos, and they're almost all purchased. But I like. I don't avoid free plugins. I haven't gotten burnt at like you were saying. That licensing issue is a little bit of an annoyance, but actually, I have the reverse experience in which I'm anxious to get it resolved because it's a great reverb, and I would use it again. But I don't have any free plugins that I use on a regular basis. So in my template, all the plugins that are there are something I've paid for, or something that they've charged for, I should say.
How about you, Vince?
Yeah, I really can't think of any free stuff that I consistently use, unless you count things that come bundled with a DAW or anything like that. Actually, no. For a lot of, let's see.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Man. Yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, there are some guys that will do free stuff, and then what I end up doing is I'll go ahead and patronize them and buy the other stuff. It's like, oh, this is a free version of this thing, and I'm going to get that. Oh, that's a really cool FM synth. I am going to get your version of the of your OPN emulator. And that's going to be a purchase. But I don't know if any free stuff that I actually use pretty consistently.
All right, I have to take it back. There is one free plugin that I use constantly, and it's Stephen Slate's Revival.
Ah, right.
So, but that's not from a creative. Well, that's not a very kind thing saying about mastering, because that's a very creative thing to do. But I don't use it when I'm writing, I should say. I use it when I've got something that's been written by somebody else and I'm doing a mix. And I love that plugin, so I take it back. Revival for sure. I'm going to put the link in the chat room, and we've talked about it in the past. It's fantastic. Arguably, it's a replacement for the Moog high band, air band that they have.
Those are big words.
I know, but it's remarkably good. You have to listen. The Revival has two knobs on it. It's got a high-end knob and a low-end knob, and the low-end knob is okay. I gotta get it around 2 o'clock before I'm starting to feel it, and that feels like I've lost. I don't have enough room left to really work with. I feel like I've had to turn it too far to get some result out of it, and so therefore it doesn't leave me with much to work with. But the high band, you don't have to turn it very far before you start hearing some amazing things. So definitely check out Revival. So
in the chat room on Twitch, aka our buddy, aka ADR. I wonder what that stands for.
Also known as Adriano something.
ADR. He really likes dealing with dialogue.
Well, is that what he does all day?
So actually, he has a really good question. He was asking about workflow. He says, I assume it's a he. Are you a he?
Oh,
maybe a she.
You met Adriano. He came to the live Game Audio Hour in San Francisco.
I think it's coming back to me.
Anyway.
The question
yes.
is, do you guys generally render individual virtual instrument tracks when you're done with a song or project?
Oh my God.
And do you mix with audio renders or do you mix with active virtual instruments? That's a very good question.
Can I take the rendering, the freezing tracks? Can I take that one?
You do that one.
So, no, and I should. And I do stupid things, and so learn from my mistakes. I record a lot of live audio into my DAW, and so therefore my my cache is set rather low. I try to keep around 4 milliseconds of time because I'll be playing guitar and I want to feel the notes. I want to hear them in my headphones immediately upon playing. But remember that when you're not recording something live, to crank that cache up, because as I start writing orchestral things, I just duplicate tracks with instruments on. I'll choose, like, my template has a lot of cheap samples because I want to write quickly. I don't care what it sounds like. I just want to hear a whole brass ensemble, a whole strings ensemble. And I'll come up with a little line on my strings ensemble. I'll duplicate that, delete the stuff that I had done before so that I could do some new stuff to layer on top of it. And I come up with with all of the lines this way. The more you duplicate, the more it starts crushing your memory, the more it starts crushing the cache that Ableton's using. And I always forget to up my cache. And so this latest project I was working on, I contacted Mike, Mr. Shapiro from the show, and I said, I am constantly getting these clicking and clipping noises, and it's slowing me down. It's really annoying. I thought it was the Play engine because I was using Play's Hollywood Brass. And Mike said, no, I think it's your cache inside Ableton. Crank that up. So I cranked it up, and of course everything went away. I went to 1024. And it was great. And then I started layering some more, and it started coming back. And at that point, I'm out of an adjustable cache, according to Ableton. So what I did then is I start freezing tracks. What I don't like about freezing tracks is that I don't think there's a point ever in a section of the orchestra that I feel I'm done. I don't say, yep, violin, strings, everybody's done. I can freeze this whole thing. I'm done. I'm never going to revisit it. And I don't freeze it because I keep thinking I'm going to change a note. I'm going to, I might write something in the brass that's a little dissonant. And I'll need to revisit the string so that I can bring down this one note by a half a step so that I can make it all, uniformly sound good. And so I never freeze because I think I'm constantly going to go back there. And I think it's about learning the workflow of freezing anyway and then unfreezing to make the change and freezing again. It takes more time, but in the end, I wouldn't have been dealing with all of these clipping and spiking audio issues that actually lost me a couple of hours to try to resolve. So I am a proponent of freezing. I don't do it myself, and I should, and I need to learn to do it more often. Also increase your cache. There's my rundown on that experience. What about you guys?
Wow. I like working with active virtual instruments.
Yeah.
Except for in the case where I'm working with instruments that are non-deterministic. And then I'm like, once I start getting to a point where I know that the particular composition that I have just sometimes results in the right thing and sometimes doesn't, then I'm going to actually make a point of trying to freeze it at the right way. Things like, this violin portamento sounds just right now. How come the other 75% of the time it doesn't sound right? Yeah, I just have some virtual instruments that are non-deterministic. And that's really annoying when this piece is done, and I decide to bounce it all done, and then I listen back to the final wave file and, got it in SoundForge for my 2-track, and wait, that note sounds wrong. Yeah. So that's the one case where I'll freeze. But most of the time I just stick with I'm never done with anything until I'm really, really totally done. And, he also made a comment about, mixing. I've got this thing where I want to mix with the composition rather than try to mix after all the composition is done.
Yeah. Well, what I do in that case is I do wait till it's done. This is my process. I don't know if it's helpful. When I'm finally able to be complete in my mind, I then go in and I record every single track. Some people call those stems. Not really, because stems are usually a combination of a few tracks together. I record every individual track, and I also record it as close to zero as possible. So even if it's a quiet choir doing something, I bump it so it's like, rah, and they're screaming their heads off. And then I can bring it down in the mix and get them where I want, because nothing's worse than having some quiet track that you have to try to bump up, and you bring up the noise floor, and you take it into RX and you add gain to it, and it just doesn't sound great. So I would rather loud that I can make quiet than quiet that I have to make loud. So that's what I do. I've got my MIDI all done. I think this piece is done. I then go back and I render each MIDI track to an audio track as close to zero as possible so that I can mix later. The bad side about that is that, I just lost the thought just when it came in. Do you guys ever do that? You have a thought that you're leading to and it's gone by the time you get there? Or is that just me because I'm old?
No, it happens too often.
Well, anyway, there's a bad side to that, and I'll come back to it in a minute. But Alex, you got anything to add to that subject matter?
Yeah, I like to keep it. I like to keep it active. I think because of me, my process is so stupid. It's kind of like a crossfade where this side is sound design, and this side is mixing. Okay. So I can't separate anymore. Nowadays, I just can't sort of say, okay, now I'm designing sounds. Now I'm tracking music. now I'm mixing.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a crossfade. So now I'm designing sounds, but the whole process right through to mixing, I'll still be tweaking the synths. And then mixing as well. It's like, okay, the first thing I do when I get a sound in there and I start playing around, I think I might like that, and I track that in. The first thing I'll do is sort of do a rough mix of it.
Yeah.
And then so the mixing the responsibility for mixing sort of creeps up like a sort of some kind of 6 dB per octave kind of high pass, that's my mixing process. And then right at the end of the project, the sound design is all kind of finished, and I'm not touching the synths anymore because they're good, and now I'm just only mixing. So for me, for that reason, it's really hard for me to bounce anything, to sort of or to freeze anything. Actually, I mean, because I work in Renoise anyway, which doesn't really have a freeze function in the same sense that the other DAWs do. It's always kind of live like that.
There's a danger with freezing too. For instance, the way I set up my template in Ableton is that I'll have a MIDI track that contains Contact. I'll open that Contact instance and I'll load in it all of the instruments that I want to load in it per that section of the orchestra. For instance, I'll have a strings contact, a brass contact, a percussion contact, a extras contact. And so in the strings contact, I might load some violins from like Friedlander violin, and I also might load the cello from some other library. And inside that one instance of contact, I've got the string, the violin, Friedlander's on MIDI channel 1, and the cello's on MIDI channel 2. Then below that MIDI track that holds Contact and all the instruments inside it, I have another MIDI channel, and that's the MIDI channel that I'm going to write the actual notes upon, but I'm pointing it to MIDI channel 1 of the MIDI track that holds Contact. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What's the benefit of doing that?
Well, that way, actually, it's the way I learned to do it with Contact. I've learned from Mike that Play doesn't like that. Play likes to have multiple instances of it with a single instrument in it on every track that you're going to use it. Where I was taught Contact wanted to have one instance of Contact with a bunch of instruments inside it, and then everybody points to that based upon the MIDI channel. Here's the bad thing about freezing in that case, is when I freeze my MIDI track that has the notes on it, there's no audio. It doesn't have a sample library upon it, so I can't freeze it because it says there's nobody here. There's no audio output. I can't freeze, because basically freezing is just converting MIDI into an audio track, a MIDI track into an audio track. And yet I can't freeze, although it would let me freeze the MIDI channel that has Contact in it, I would be freezing it with all of the MIDI channels below it that are pointing at it on multiple MIDI channels. I'd be freezing that entire performance, like grouping it together and creating a stem, and I don't want to do that. So have the libraries, Contact included, reached a point like Play where they want to have multiple instances open, one per track. Are they all like that now?
I've been messing with that a lot lately because recently I've been really asking a lot out of my computer, specifically with Contact libraries. And before, I did used to have a big Contact instance that would have all of my different Contact things in there. I would have Friedlander in there, I'd have a piano in there, I'd have some Garriton in there, whatnot. Nice.
Old school.
But yeah. I mean, I still like my Garriton big band.
That's great.
Pretty good sounding. It's just fun and playable. But now, after a bunch of experimenting, and this was also after I upgraded to a new processor, right now I've got lots of Contact instances, most of which have a single big instrument.
That's what Play is wanting, apparently.
Yeah.
I've been doing it wrong the whole time. Well, not the whole time.
Well, it might be the types of instruments. Like I do have one Contact instance where I have my small stuff. So, okay, I've got a 100 meg, percussion thing here, a 50 meg sort of percussion thing here, pretty small things. Yeah. And then I have my 1.5 gig Embertone cello and my 1 gig Embertone and viola. Those will have separate instances. And then I have my DAW. Actually, my DAW is actually better about handling multi-core and spreading out my individual contact instances between the cores compared to Contact 5. And Contact has its own multi-core setting, but I found that my DAW's multi-core handling is better than Contact's multi-core handling.
That's exactly, exactly is an overstatement, but that's what Mike was saying, is that Play will take advantage of your multiple cores if you put multiple instances of Play out. Whereas if you use one, it's going to stick to one core and overload it with all the instruments that are within it.
That's because most multi-core processing works based on tracks, right? So you have if you have a whole lot of stuff on one track, you can't split that across multiple
That
cores.
makes
I think
total sense.
some plugins can, but it's very difficult apparently.
I'm going to change up my template, and I'm going to upload it to the site so that people can have it. I'm going to load up like 4 instances of Contact and 4 instances of Play in each grouping of the orchestra.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
That would be nice, because I was happy to know, though. I have an early 2008 Cheese Grater Mac Pro, and I have 32 gigs of memory, and it's a dual core, but each core had 8 or something. So, like when I bring up some softwares that say, "Here's how many CPUs we have to keep track of," it's typically 16 CPUs. So those are all different cores, different threads, if you will, in the PC world. And that guy, once I started adding multiple instances of Play, I upped my cache to 1024, and I restarted after making all of those changes. It was fantastic. I got rid of all that popping and clicking, and everything was great. So it's all about using your libraries the way they want you to. And Mike did remind me that in the manuals, Play does say to use multiple instances. My brain, the last I'll say on this issue, is that it's stuck in that old mode when I had 4 PCs. Before I switched to a Mac, I had 4 PCs. I had strings on one, brass on the other, percussion on the other, and it was East West's library that I was using. And I had to have all of these PCs running. I had 1 instance of Play with all of those things loaded. I mean, doesn't Vienna also want you to do that? Vienna has some software where they want you to load everything in one place, right?
Well, with Ensemble Pro?
Yeah, doesn't Ensemble Pro?
Yeah, it's supposed to be, you handle it just in there. That's it.
Is that using multi-cores, though? I mean, okay, so you could put Ensemble Pro on its own machine, load everything in there, and it would automatically split all of the instruments within Ensemble Pro onto different cores if you had them available.
Yeah, it does the multi-core handling, and apparently it does it great.
Yeah, I have it, but I don't use it because I'm now in this process that I'm used to, you know. Classic case where, do you want to change or do you want to keep with what you know?
Yeah, true.
So, hey, Vince, tell me about this dehumanizer.
Oh, Dehumanizer. So, Dehumanizer came out a little earlier this year, and it's basically a program that is made for making cool voices and doing it in mostly, not quite real time, but fast enough that you're able to, hear yourself and edit and tweak while you're messing around with the type of voice that you want. You can do voices that are intelligible, for proper dialogue conveying. You can do voices that are just screams and screeches and whatnot. And the program itself is basically a big toolbox of different sorts of modules that you can link together in different ways. So one of the modules is an animal convolution module. So you sort of design the animal vocal cords, and your voice will drive that. Another one is sort of a granular synthesis type module, and your voice can do that. You can put different voices, and you can put different wave files in another module and use your voice to scrub through those files. And then all of these different modules can be linked together in different ways. It's a pretty cool thing, and I've actually got it running on my computer here.
Hey,
I wish I had a proper webcam, but
gotcha.
Let's see here.
There goes that crackle again.
Hello. Let's see. What's a good thing to do? Let me go to advanced mode. And let me try. This is the little dragon. I'm a little dragon.
That kind of sounds
I
like.
want to blow things up.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'm going to move my computer and show you this interface a bit.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Let's see here. Actually, I can go like this.
Ooh.
Hold on.
I love that brick wall. How do you get a brick wall in your office?
Wait a minute.
That's badass.
I'm gonna do this. Tools.
Alex, do you have a brick wall in your office?
No, this is Japan. There's no brick in Japan.
It's
true.
Sorry, give me a moment here.
Take your time. I'm going to talk to Alex about why there's no bricks in Japan.
It's because of the earthquakes.
Oh. Well, bricks,
They just-
you can put poles through the holes.
Brick has never been a... oh, Vince is dropping. Oh, there we go.
Oh, here we go. Let's look
So
at this.
there is dehumanizer
Yeah.
interface.
Nice.
And you can see that there are a bunch of different modules along the bottom.
Okay.
Like animal convolution, noise generator, pitch shifting, delay pitch shifting. And if you look at any one of these, you can open it up and tweak it around. There's a big palette. I'm going to turn off that thing. There's a big palette of different sorts of presets that will use different ones. Very few of them actually use the entirety of these modules. Usually they only use half or maybe even sometimes less than that. We got different ones and it'll change some settings. And of course you can tweak all of these things later.
Okay.
Probably some of these are more familiar to you than others. Like, okay, pitch shifting, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Spectral shifting, that's kind of a fun one where you have to, depending on, how much energy you put in, you trigger one voice versus another voice. So like if you do low energy, you have a different sort of pitch. If you do really high energy, high amplitude stuff, you could get another pitch.
Oh, okay.
You've got
Okay.
EQ on there. Let's see, granular stuff, spectral shifting, this sort of cross synthesis thing where you can move between two different voices here, which is kind of similar to with the scrubbing convolution thing here. Yeah. And it can be really kind of tough to navigate because while those are really cool and for the most part pretty easy to learn,
Mm-hmm.
then you got the routing. So that is the routing thing. And basically, it's a not very clean way of showing where your audio input is going into, as well as where the output and any of these individual modules is going to.
It's like a demented Christmas tree.
I really wish they could have shown this in an easier way, because this is the most annoying thing.
I thought you were going to say, wish they would have shown this on the box because you wouldn't have bought it.
The thing is, it actually does some really good stuff. It does some very high quality sounds.
So I assume it's a matrix, right? There's something across the top and there's something across the side.
Well, it's so audio input. I'm going to put this to the noise generator, 100%. And then, let's see. So my noise generator is actually going to the pitch shift over here.
Oh, cool.
So pitch shifting, okay, that goes to stereo out. All right, cool. But also, pitch shift is also feeding poly pitch shifting as well as granular. There's a part of me that wishes that it did something more Reason-like or something that's a little bit, where it filters out all the stuff that I don't need to know. I don't need to know that all these other things are at 0%, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And just make it easier to read where things are actually going to. It's just ins and outs. This is the most annoying thing about it. But the actual basics of, learning how this animal convolution filter works, how the noise generator works, how the granular, the scrubbing, all those things, that's actually pretty easy. And once you get to that and you can get past the routing, that'll get you to the interesting stuff when it comes to voice processing. This is a really powerful tool.
To tell you the truth, I'm a proud owner of a Synthi AKS, and it has a matrix patch bay on it that I love, and so that kind of makes total sense. There's something about the Matrix patch bay that I actually like.
Really?
As opposed to what you were talking about, because there's just so many functionalities for routing things in and out of other things and sending multiple units to one central location. There's something about that I really love.
I mean, I think the thing that got me about it is, yes, there is the capability of feeding in somewhere between 0 and 100% for what you're routing between different modules. But from what I've learned, it doesn't seem all that useful to actually do that. It really does want things just sound better if it's just like, okay, got this module. I'm not doing really a mix of a blend of anything. I'm just really messing with the attributes.
Gotcha. Does it make you sound as awesome as Alex does? That voice of Alex is just beautiful.
I don't think it can make me truly radio ready.
I have a face for radio. Did anybody ever tell you that?
Oh, man.
Well, one thing I heard it coming out when you did the demo, though. I did hear basically, and I know that the little dragon is just is one patch. I'm sure this thing can do an amazing thing, but I want to make the point to people that if you know your way around a vocoder, you can get really far when it comes to affecting your voice so that it has characteristics of monsters or little creepy children.
It's true.
There's even a video, I think it's related to Game Audio Hour, but it was before we started Game Audio Hour on my channel, where I talked about how to manipulate the vocoder in Ableton so that you can come up with these kind of voice effects.
Do you have any recommendations for third-party like non-Ableton vocoder plugins, Kyle?
I'm a lover of vocoder hardware. They've, anything Korg has touched that related to a vocoder, go there, because I think that they have perfected the vocoder, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with you, Kyle. Dehumanizer is a really good tool, but when you break it down, all those individual modules, you probably have the capability to do any one of those modules somewhere in your system, in a plugin, in a freebie that comes included with your DAW. Like even the animal convolution stuff that's there, which is, that's pretty cool stuff, simulating vocal cords. But even then, the implementation that they have there, you can actually find those Max MSP patches for free, because it's like MIT media license. It's actually totally freely available, the algorithms that are used for that. They just went ahead and packaged it together into this one application here.
Yeah, so start with your own options, right, rather than spend money. But I think we at Game Audio Hour would say that about everything. You might already have on your machine, given the plethora of possibilities that exist out there to do game audio, you might already have the capabilities. That's the hard part, though, isn't it? It's trying to identify whether you need that piece of software or not, because we don't always know what all of our tools do. Yeah.
I think with Dehumanizer, the cool, I do use it, but I don't usually use it on my desktop machine where I have all of my big tools. I got all my DAW stuff, all my plugins. But Dehumanizer on my laptop, when I'm away from home, when I'm working on the go, and I have all of these things all in this one app, and I can use it for my live mic input if I have a USB mic, or just use files and batch process those through this thing. It actually makes a whole lot of sense for me in a small laptop situation.
And always remember that if you plan on kidnapping somebody, it's perfect for making a phone call. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
And with that, on that positive note.
But don't forget to send your letter in a bunch of cutout pieces from magazines and newspapers. Okay. So what's this episode? The How to Get Away with Kidnapping Somebody.
I think this episode is the Don't Get Chromophone, Don't Get Dehumanizer.
No. I'm actually completely for getting Dehumanizer. I can't wait to get it because it does go beyond what I can do with a vocoder. I was just making the comment that one patch that Vince brought up, I actually could pull off in a vocoder. But I'm sure there are hundreds of patches in there that I would not be able to. And maybe we can get Victor to come on and give us a little rundown, because he did a bunch of presets for that, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, Victor Phoenix, yeah.
That'd be awesome to get him on. I'll talk to him. I'll see if we can get him. I'll say, hey, remember that guy you met once? And he'll go, oh, yeah. And I'll say, come on to a show. So, okay, guys. Hey, it was great seeing you.
Yeah.
I love this Monday nights or Tuesday mornings.
Yes. Here in the future.
Hey, Alex, we're going to go eat dinner and go to bed now while you work.
Yeah, that's right.
You're welcome.
I'm going to run my 6 miles. That's what I usually do on Monday night after this.
Oh, my God. 6 miles of running.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
While you do that, I'm going to eat a steak because I can smell them cooking on the grill.
What? No spaghetti today?
No spaghetti. I know. Isn't that crazy? It's because I had spaghetti for lunch, so Jen switched it up.
Oh, nice.
It's so kind of you guys to remember all these stupid things that I say. But yes, typically Monday night is spaghetti night. It's easy, it's fast. But today it's steak. And I, with that, am going to leave you. So tweet us, face us, Twitch us, and YouTube us. And we will love you very much for it. Thank you, chatties, for always joining in. And for all the wonderful chat that goes on in the chat room. We really appreciate it. And thank you guys for doing the show. And I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Carl.
Bye.